Good day, it's Pastor Jedediah here at Eau Claire Evangelical Missionary Church. Actually, I'm not at the church today. I'm in my basement once again, just to give you a little bit of an update on how we're doing in our chick situation. We've also brought in our meat bird chicks and as well a few extra layers because we didn't know how many boys and girls we were going to get, and we still won't know until, well, more feathers show up. But all of our eggs have hatched, including our duckling, and we'll take a quick peek at them shortly. But I want to encourage you in the fact that God is sometimes a God of suddenlies. We think, oh, there's not a lot of work going on. What is God doing? I can't see anything. But we're supposed to have faith, and faith is not going by just what we see. Faith is trusting in God that He is faithful and we can depend on Him. It's a lot like gardening. And at the same, like when we plant something, we can't actually see the growth. I don't know how many times I've disturbed and destroyed my carrots because I thought they weren't growing. And then I moved the soil and they were no good. There was carrots growing, but I couldn't tell. And we need to do that with faith sometimes. When we pour into something, when we sow seeds, we have to wait for a harvest. So let's just take a quick peek at some of the harvests that we've got around here. It's different kind of seed. It's chickens and one little duckling. So let's take a quick peek at that. So here we go. This is part of what we have around here. This is our duckling, which we call Quackity. And beside Quackity, it's the only duck, so Quackity needed a friend. So we gave Quackity this little chick to hang out with. And so this is Quackity and friend. Really fun time to be around. And sometimes that's what we have to remind ourselves. When the harvest first comes, the harvest is small, and it might not exactly look like what we expect. Because what we're looking for long-term here, Quackity is a call duck who will get to a little bigger than a foot in size. And this chick is either a rooster or a hen, some sort of Americana cross that will either give us eggs or possibly look after other parts of the flock. So this is part of the harvest that we have so far with this brood. So in amongst this group here is many of the chicks that were hatched from our own. You can tell this one right here is one of the ones that's actually one that hatched. It's one of ours. As not the little black ones, but this one here is. That might be the firstborn that we saw last week. Not too sure. But as you can see, we've got our hands full. Last week we were mother hen to one chick, and now we're mother hen to several chicks. In fact, last week we had a power outage, so we had to take a handful of chicks. Everybody in the household had about 5 or 6 chicks on our laps, and we had to have some towels on there and just keep these little guys warm because they're not quite ready to be out from under the heat lamp, as you can tell right now. And it's fun, and hopefully in 6 months or so we'll be getting a whole bunch of eggs from them, which is reaping our harvest. So it took 21 days for each one of those chickens to hatch. And this little duck here, he took, or she took, we don't know quite which, 28 days. And boy, did we have to exercise some patience as we waited for that little duckling to hatch. In fact, when all the chicks, I don't know about the hatchery, but around here, we wanted to help them out. We wanted to help them along. But that's not what you're supposed to do. You have to let those chicks exit the shell by themselves. And don't we do that with God sometimes? Remember how I talked about my carrots and how sometimes, I don't see any evidence of the faith actually, those seeds doing anything. But we can do that near the end of the process as well. Right before the harvest, we can disturb kind of what God's been working on. There's a biblical example of that, and that is through the story of Abraham and Isaac. But it's not Abraham and Isaac's story. Before Isaac, because Isaac is the child of promise. God said, you're going to have many descendants, and I'm going to give them to you. And it was through Sarah. But they had a different plan that they came up with, and sometimes we tend to do that. We tend to try and speed things up with God or move things along and come up with our own plans and end up birthing an Ishmael. What do I mean by that? Well, that was Sarah's plan. She said, you know what, Abraham, I'm done with menopause. I'm not going to have kids, and you're getting pretty old. Why don't you go into my servant Hagar, and she can have a child on my lap, and that can be considered as if my child, and we can have descendants that way. But all it ended up doing was causing conflict and heartache for Abraham. because eventually he had to let Ishmael go because he was not the child of promise. And sometimes we can cause extra heartache and step into the wrong situation. I know personally I've done that before. I bought a car, I rushed into it, and I did not pray and I did not trust God to provide for us. And it was a challenging situation the whole time we had that car. And we can do that with other things too. So to recap kind of what we're talking about today, faith is about sowing and reaping. We need to pray, we need to ask God, we need to depend on Him. And faith is also not looking at the circumstances, but looking unto God, who is the one who provides the answer. And sometimes, like we had with these chicks, the incubator went from full of eggs to full of these little moving birds in just a matter of a couple days. And so be prepared for God to move suddenly and put your trust and faith in Him. Thanks for joining me this week. I hope you've enjoyed this. Have a great week. God bless.